What I am proposing today is not only allowed under the Charter, it is required by the Charter. Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees life, liberty, and security of the person. 50,000 people had their Section 7 right to life violated by the open borders, soft on crime, legal drugs policy of the Liberals. I will protect the charter rights of Canadians and their right to life, liberty, and the security of the person by locking up the mass murderers that bring these drugs in. This penalty that I propose is proportionate to the crime. If you kill dozens of people, you should go away for life. And that is what we will do. I will lock up these fentanyl murderers and we will throw away the key. And I will do it not just to save lives, but to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Interesting assessment. Very interesting analysis. I can't think of another politician who's actually suggested that you can do that, that you're fulfilling a charter of rights. Because CBC did a hit piece, and we'll come back in a minute to discuss that. Not only that, the dribble that's coming out of Mark Carney's mouth, what it really means. But I think Poilievre was courageous yesterday with this. We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Okay, yes, please like this station if we can beat those YouTube algorithms. Subscribe if you haven't, please, and resubscribe if you need to do that too. Thanks for your support. Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. Hope you had a chance to see my little segment on Redacted yesterday too. Like half the people who watch this show, maybe all of them, also watch Redacted. It's always a pleasure to share some Canadian news with my friends Clayton and Natalie. And what can we say about Pierre Poilievre yesterday? I think this is very courageous. And let's listen to a bit more of this because it's interesting. CBC's already done a hit piece with a criminologist suggesting that it's preposterous. His words, preposterous to think you can put away drug kingpins for life. Even though, as Pierre Poilievre points out, these are the people that are killing tens of thousands of Canadians.
Stop drugs to save our people and put Canada first. It starts with locking up mass traffickers and manufacturers of this poison with penalties that fit the crime. But what is that crime? Let's call fentanyl trafficking what it is. Mass murder. Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd. You might not know who you're killing, but it's certain someone will die.
Notice how he begins this dissertation with Canada first, separating himself from the globalist candidate out there by the name of Mark Carney. Mark Carney is a globalist, complete globalist. And I like the fact that Poilievre is getting back to the Canada first stride.
That's why I'm denouncing today, as part of my Canada First plan, that common sense conservatives will bring mandatory prison sentences. There will be life sentences for anyone caught trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. 40 milligrams is enough to kill 20 people. Anyone who's involved in trafficking that amount of fentanyl will get a life sentence. We will lock them up and we will throw away the key. And 15 years for traffickers caught with between 20 milligrams and 40 milligrams will be the new mandatory sentence. The people we will lock away are not non-violent addicts. They are the victims. We will come to the rescue of victims and addicts. We will provide life-saving treatment.
All right, so what makes this different from the regular war on drug strategy is that it targets the drug dealers, the sellers, the kingpins, not the users or the addicts in many cases, if we want to describe things as they really are. It does no good to throw all of the addicts in jail. And that's exactly what the United States has done in the past with its war on drugs. It's gathered up all of the addicts, thrown them in jail, and under the 3 strikes you're out policy, some of them never got out of jail for drug use, for buying drugs, for using drugs. It's these scumbags who are trafficking a lethal substance to millions of people and making billions of dollars in profit off of that misery. These are the people that belong in jail. And I think this is what makes Poilievre's strategy refreshingly different, because it's the people producing this toxic substance that need to be punished.
Message to anyone struggling with addiction today is have hope, hang on, help is on the way. My government will provide residential treatment. They will take people off the streets, provide them with detox, recovery, counseling, group therapy, sweat lodges for First Nations victims, and help them get into housing, a job, and back to their families. We will bring our loved ones home drug-free. Nor are we talking about the small-time dealer on a street corner, though he too will be punished. Rather, my law will go after the fentanyl kingpins who kill thousands of people each year. We will treat them like the mass murderers they are. We will bring home the country we knew and love. After 9 years of the Carney Trudeau Liberals, everything is broken. Housing costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. Gun crime has doubled. The national debt has doubled. All of this because Justin Trudeau was implementing the radical policies of carbon tax Carney. These policies have destroyed our working class, and now he threatens an even bigger carbon tax after a brief election pause, a tax that will drive hundreds of billions of dollars out of our country and continue the rising cost of living that the Carney Liberals have imposed over the last 9 years. The good news is, life was not like this before the Carney Trudeau Liberals, and it won't be like this after they're gone. We're going to bring home the country we knew and loved. We're going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Most of all, we are going to put our country first. This will be a country where hard work pays off, where anyone from anywhere can do anything. That was the Canadian promise, and my purpose is to bring it home. Let's make this a country where anybody who works hard gets a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods wrapped around the protective arms of strong borders. So first of all, obviously Conservatives have been victims of foreign interference. It's clear that...
Now he's answering a question here. I want to comment on what he said here. Do you notice how he enveloped this whole speech with a border security message? He starts off with Canada first. This is a drug strategy that puts Canada first because it's about saving Canadian lives. It's not just about appeasing Donald Trump to keep the fentanyl out of the United States. It's about keeping the fentanyl out of Canada and to deal with the drug scourge in a realistic way, giving people the treatment they need to get off of drugs so there's no market for drugs. This is a better strategy than just simply locking people up for drug use. And anyone who's ever been involved in recovery of any kind knows that people need help to get out of this cycle of addiction and abuse. And this is what he's offering. Not so-called safe supply drugs so people will take more drugs. Not pretending that there's something safe in injecting drugs at a supervised injection site. Heroin is unsafe at any speed, at any level. Heroin is toxic. Fentanyl is toxic. It's lethal. It's deadly. It kills people. And that's where we have to draw the line. And that's where we have to say this is a strategy that brings life where there's been death. So I applaud this. I was critical of Poilievre last weekend because he was not talking about the border. He was only talking about carbon tax Carney, who we'll get to in a minute, by the way. But he has really taken this initiative by focusing on the fentanyl crisis. If I can say that again, I have to be careful using that word. He has risen to the occasion, and he now is owning the border strategy. Because as we discussed yesterday, it's not clear whether Trudeau is going to follow through on his promises to secure the border. Where are the 10,000 frontline personnel? Where are they coming from? Who are they? No answers to those questions. There's some kind of economic summit going on with the U.S. tomorrow, but God only knows what that's supposed to achieve. What Poilievre is saying here is extremely important. Now, let's listen to a bit more. He responds to a question here, which I think is quite interesting.
Beijing wanted to keep Justin Trudeau in power. I have no doubt that they'll want Mark Carney to stay in power. Mark Carney has a background of shipping investment to China and favoring foreign economies over the Canadian economy. We need a prime minister who will put Canada first. On the question of ports, you're quite right. Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and the Liberals have destroyed our border security and our ports. After 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, our ports are allowing 99% of shipping containers to enter our country with no inspection. And that's where the drug ingredients, the guns, the stolen cars come into our country or leave to support massive crime networks. I announced that I will eliminate 2,000 bureaucrats and replace them with 2,000 extra CBSA agents who will have the power to surveil our entire border. They will also have the ability to use new high-tech scanners that can peer right through the metal walls of shipping containers to spot drugs, guns, and stolen cars. We will also expand our border security across the entire border with surveillance towers, drones, helicopters. I've said the military should immediately go to the borders to block fentanyl traffickers and other lawbreakers. The radical Trudeau-Carney experiment with open borders and post-national globalism has not only divided and weakened our country's sense of identity, it has endangered our people. When I'm Prime Minister, that radical, borderless, globalist ideology pushed by the Trudeau-Carney Liberals will end, and we will have a Prime Minister that seals the border, protects our people, and puts Canada first.
Excellent. As I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, Pierre Poilievre needs to own the border issue because he's been on this issue long before Trudeau even expressed any interest in it. Trudeau is, at best, half-hearted in any commitment he has to secure the border. Poilievre needed to own this border issue. He couldn't become part of Team Trudeau. He could not allow himself to be co-opted by the Trudeau government. He could not allow the CBC to tell him just step away from the political process. Don't oppose Justin Trudeau. Just be part of his government. He's found a way to say, no, I'm leading on this issue, and he needed to do that. So I applaud him for doing that, because there were some days there where he did not look like he knew where to go with this issue. He's hit his stride again. I'm glad to see that, because we need real response to the border. not imagined, or let's pretend we're going to do something. Now, I want to look at Mark Carney here for a second. You may remember a film, and we're going to talk about this more tomorrow or over the weekend. It was the penultimate, or the second to last film, starring Peter Sellers, the great comedian. And it was completely unlike the work Sellers had done in the previous decade, where he was known the world over as Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther movies. Broad, often slapstick comedy. He did a movie called Being There in 1979. It was about an individual who was really not very intelligent. In fact, he was rather simple-minded. Everything he had learned in life and everything he repeated had come from television, watching television. And it was a fascinating study on the effects of television viewing on the human mind. But because he was able to repeat things he heard in television, people thought he was very profound, perhaps a genius. And he became an advisor to the United States president in the movie. And at the end of the movie, he's a candidate to succeed that president because he knows how to repeat lines that people interpret or think, wow, that's really profound. Listening to Mark Carney talk, I said, the similarities are incredible. This is a man who has absolutely vacuous thoughts. And he's been lauded as an economic genius, even though his tenure at the Bank of England was disastrous. And somehow this guy presents himself as some kind of political savior. But if you listen to what he says, there's absolutely no substance there. There's nothing there. He's got absolutely nothing to say beyond platitudes. And let's listen to what I'm talking about.
Yes, relationships can change. In recent weeks, the U.S. has called into question our decades-long relationship of cooperation. While I welcome the temporary suspension of U.S. tariffs and very much welcome the joint plan to address the scourge of fentanyl, recent events have been a wake-up call for Canadians. The world has changed, and we too must change to realize the full promise of our great country. Since I launched my campaign a few weeks ago, I've heard from people across the country that they too want change. Canadians want change with a plan that stands up for Canada and creates an opportunity for all Canadians. Canadians want change with a new, positive leadership that ends division and builds together.
Now, I'm sure you can find people to stand behind you and nod their heads as you say things that are just completely inane. Yeah, we need change. Where did we hear that one before? This is the Barack Obama playbook. Change. That was his motto for his first election campaign. The second time around, it was forward. This is the sort of person Mark Carney is. We need change without even defining what kind of change. How are you even change? You have been part of the Liberal government for the last 9.5 years. How is that change? You're an insider. You're a globalist. You're Justin Trudeau on Valium. What kind of change do you represent? You don't represent change. You're not an outsider. And you don't even say what you intend to do.
Now, I'm not a politician. I am a pragmatist. And so if I see something that's not working, I will change it. And that's why last week I proposed a new climate policy, eliminating the consumer carbon tax, having large polluters pay Canadians.
We'll get to more of this in a minute. We're going to have large polluters. What the hell? He talks exactly like Justin Trudeau. If you produce carbon, you're polluting, which is BS. Absolute nonsense. Carbon is not pollution. And this half-wit should not be describing it as pollution. But he expects the big corporations to pay Canadians? What kind of a dunce is this man? Before they start paying Canadians by being taxed by this liberal government for producing material that is not pollution, they're going to leave the country, Mark Carney. They're going to leave Canada and set up shop elsewhere. That's what's going to happen.
To make climate-smart choices and helping our countries leapfrog their American competitors in global markets. Canada needs more of this type of change. Change that puts money in people's pockets. Change that makes our companies more competitive. Change that builds the strongest economy in the G7. Now we face a very different world to one we've known all our lives. A world in which Americans have become more our neighbors than our good friends. And it can feel bewildering at first, but if we take control, it will be empowering. And here's how we do that. We need to distinguish between what we can't change, what we can influence, and what we can and must change to build an even better Canada. We need to understand.
This is like a Kamala Harris word salad. We must change and change the things we can change. And if we can't change the things we can't change, then we're not going to be able to change very much. This is an incredibly inane description of his policy. This is complete vacuity. I have never seen a liberal politician less adept at putting together a coherent platform than Mark Carney. This guy is being touted as the guy who's going to save Canada from what? Justin Trudeau, the man he works for? It's just incredible. If anyone buys this, then there's probably some bridges in Brooklyn and San Francisco they could also be buying.
Understand what we can influence. Look, the world is being fundamentally transformed. The old rules-based order is finished, but a new one, a new system, has not yet emerged. And Canada should now work with like-minded nations to create a trading system that is consistent with our values and that builds our prosperity. Whether we can influence President Trump is debatable, but I think we can, if we listen to what Americans want and respond in ways that are best for Canada. However, we need to be crystal clear about our bottom lines. This proud country will never be part of the United States in any shape or form. Hear, hear.
Oh, he got a round of applause for that, or a smattering of applause. Does not have to do with anything. Nobody's arguing that that's a viable option, except maybe Donald Trump. But no Canadian political party, politician, is arguing that's a viable option. This guy doesn't think through anything he says. I think I showed this the other day, but listen to this again. This is incredible how ignorant this man is, how little he understands about the economy. He's supposed to be an economist. He was the governor of the Bank of England and the governor of the Bank of Canada. I don't know how the hell he was capable of even doing that job.
The large polluters pay. And so what happens...
But does that not ultimately trickle down?
No, because what the big companies are producing, by and large, are not products that we are consuming. There's some element of that, but by and large, a steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd? I mean, not as much we used. Sorry, so that's how much steel are you using these days, Todd?
What's called the output-based.
How much steel are you using, Mark Carney? I guess you don't realize that steel is still ubiquitous. It's in the car you drive. If you ever take a bus, it's in the bus. It's in the aircraft that you're flying around in. It's in thousands of objects around us, in the house, on the streets, in the cities, in the buildings. Steel is still a very crucial commodity. And this guy doesn't even understand that. Oh, well, if we don't have steel, so what? I guess we're going to be living in a new Stone Age. The new Stone Age created by the net zero eco-extremism, the climate change extremism that will put us in a new dark age, a new Stone Age, where we can't heat our homes or drive or power our cars. Mark Carney doesn't even get that much. Here he is again, giving you some more tidbits of wisdom.
Fever gripping America. And while it rages, Canadians will remain resolute and true to our values. While America engages in a war on woke, Canadians will continue to value inclusiveness.
Oh, he really resents the fact that Donald Trump has come down against the DEI policies, against the woke policies, against transgenderism, against so-called gender-affirming care. Mark Carney loves that material. That's what he's going to push if he ever becomes prime minister. And he might become prime minister, maybe for a couple of days. But this guy is not capable of leading a party to victory. Any party, and especially the Liberal Party, which is now a byword for corruption, invasive government, and ineptitude. That's what the Liberal Party stands for. And Mark Carney is the embodiment of all of those failures. This is a man who is incapable of thinking through the tiniest bit of economic policy because he just doesn't seem to understand the real world. Why? He's been working for the United Nations as the climate change goodwill ambassador for the past 3 years. He's been a globalist, and he still is a globalist. He doesn't understand average Canadians, and he doesn't want to. He never will. Now, I want to show you a bit of Doug Ford here, because Doug Ford doesn't know what the hell he's doing now. Because Doug Ford was another one of those politicians who wanted a tariff war, a trade war with the United States because it helped him. Doug Ford is on the verge of losing half of his economy in Ontario. He could be losing all the car manufacturing base. He could be losing more. But Doug Ford doesn't know what to do. So this is why he called this early election, because he needs to win another mandate before it's too late.
But yeah, in the election day, was I happy this guy won? 100% I was. Then the guy pulled out the knife and fucking used it.
What do you say to voters who think that maybe you've lost your moral compass?
Well, you know something, I don't think there's too many people that have stood up for Ontarians and Canadians like I have. I think I've been very clear where I stand. I stand for the people of Ontario, the people of Canada. We're going to continue leading the way. We're going to continue leading the way when we go down to Washington and talk to the Congress people and the senators and governors, leading the way on my multiple calls every single day, making sure that we promote Ontario jobs, Canadian jobs. That's what I'm going to do. As we work together to protect Ontario, my friends, this week we received some welcome news. A 30-day pause on U.S. tariffs. We should all breathe a sigh of relief, but none of us can breathe easy. The simple truth is, as long as Donald Trump is president, the risk of tariffs will never go away. This is a game to him. He wants to break Canada. He wants to buy Canada. But the Canadian spirit can never be broken, and Canada is not for sale. As we stand here, all we know for sure is there's a 4-week...
Canada is not for sale, but Doug Ford sure as hell is. And that's all your little election is about, Doug Ford. And to be raging against Donald Trump when we're on the verge of getting these tariffs removed, if we are serious about border security, is pretty damn stupid.
Pause on tariffs. Whether he implements them in a month, Next year or 2 years from now, he will use the threat of tariffs to get what he wants. Make no mistake, Canada and Ontario will continue to stare down the threat of tariffs. If they come, Trump's tariffs will devastate our economy. They will put hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk, and they'll hit the bottom line of every household in Ontario. Canadians cannot afford yet another blow to their finances. So many families' budgets are already stretched to the limit. Inflation, interest rates, and the Liberal carbon tax have already taken so much. You deserve to keep more of what you earn every single day.
Yeah. And you love it, don't you? You love baiting Donald Trump. What the hell do you expect to happen? Donald Trump is going to be here for at least another 4 years. His policies will probably survive his presidency. So what are you trying to achieve? Constant fear mongering is what you're doing. You're not being constructive. You don't want to solve this problem. You don't want to solve this problem because, like Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party and Mark Carney, you want to run against Donald Trump. That's who you want to run against. And I don't know. I'm living in Ontario. I don't know who I'm going to vote for in this election. I sure as hell don't want the Liberals or the NDP to form the government because they're even worse. I would hope a true conservative party, a real conservative party, not a faux conservative, progressive conservative party, and a faux conservative leader like Doug Ford. I would hope there's a real alternative that has a viable chance of winning, but it's going to be a hard choice because Doug Ford is in this for Doug Ford. Doug Ford is completely self-serving. Doug Ford wants the trade war. He wants to run against Donald Trump. He's not being constructive. And to tell you the truth, every time I listen to Doug Ford now, I get nauseous because he's been in the pocket of Justin Trudeau for about as long as he's been Premier of Ontario. And he really is expendable. And if there was a way to get rid of Doug Ford as the leader of the party, to replace him with somebody who actually thought and acted like a real conservative, that would be the best option right now. But I don't see that happening on the horizon. But we need people like Doug Ford to keep their big mouth shut. Tubby Doug Ford, the corpulent premier, keep your big mouth shut about Donald Trump. Stop fanning the flames of a tariff war. Stop trying to pick a fight that you're going to lose. We need to move beyond this. This is what I said yesterday. This is the dumbest trade war in history. We need to move beyond it. We need to fix the border. Pierre Poilievre is talking about that. Doug Ford isn't. Justin Trudeau had better come through with every one of his promises to fix the border, including sending 10,000 frontline personnel, be they cops, be they military personnel, or be they CBSA. But it better be 10,000 and not 2,000. And you better get on it right now because you don't look too serious. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you so much for watching today, folks. Have a great Thursday. I'll be back again tomorrow at 10. Can't wait to do that little bit on being there, comparing that to Mark Carney's candidacy. Should be a lot of fun. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'll be back again tomorrow. Continue to resolve to resist, and I'll be here with all the news you need to know.